Hi there, I'm David Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, and today I'm going to do another deck tech on one of my personal decks, the Burn deck. Now, the Burn deck has been a staple of Magic ever since it came out and continues to do so. There's a lot of different iterations, a lot of different ways you can do it. This deck combines some older stuff as well as some newer stuff, and what I'm doing right now with my Burn deck is I've been trying a couple different things just to try. Some of it's kind of costly mana-wise, so I don't know if I'm going to keep them. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and take a look at my Burn deck. I hope you enjoy. Alright, so here's my red deck. So let's get started. Now, if you notice, I don't have any sleeves on this deck. Don't ask me why. It's probably because back in the day, I didn't play with sleeves on my cards. Matter of fact, nobody did. I remember playing when there wasn't even sleeves for your Magic the Gathering deck. But you should keep your stuff in sleeves, keep it nice and neat, keep all those expensive cards protected. Alright, so let's take a look at what I got here. So we're going to flip this open. So, my deck is a 65 card deck. And from year to year, it bounces from 60 to 65 cards, depending on my needs, depending on what I'm feeling. Ideally, you want the minimum amount of cards in your deck possible. That's legal for play, of course, so that way you can get to the cards you need faster. All right, so starting out, I have 11 basic mountains. And as you can see, I do like to kind of theme my decks in such a way that theme the lands. I like to have all the same kind. It just looks good when you have them out on the field. It's just a personal preference thing. I'd love to have more of these from M14. Those are really nice, but it just looks cool. And when I start to like a deck, I start kind of taking extra care for my basic lands, kind of getting them to be all the same and get the really cool ones that I like. All right, so enough of that. Now we have Sandstone Needle. This is way back from Acadian Mass. What I like about it is even though it's slow because it comes into play tapped, and you can only use it twice, but when you tap it, you remove a depletion counter to add 2 red mana to your mana pool. What I like about this is first turn, if I get this first turn, I'll lay this out first. Second turn, I'll untap. I'll probably have a basic land in my hand or draw into it, and now I have 3 mana on my second turn. So that's definitely something that I like. Plus, the Sandstone Needle allows me to get around if someone messes up my mana base by changing the color or enchants this somehow, and say this is a swamp now. So all I can do is tap it for black. Now I've got some red that I can actually use. Alright, so we're going to get rid of it, and I got 4 of these Sandstone Needles. Next I have Forgotten Cave. Now I like Forgotten Cave not because it's just a non-basic land, but because it's got cycling. This is my draw power for my red deck. And I find that mid to late game, this is very, very nice. Although, honestly, with a Burn deck, you shouldn't have a late game. Maybe late game for you, but for anybody else, your late game should be there just getting started mid-game. You know what I mean? So, because the Burn deck's got to be fast, and plus also, too, to keep up the amount of damage you need to keep up, you need to make sure that you play the right cards and you have cards in your hand. So definitely make sure to have some kind of draw power for your red deck. And that's what I like. I like cycling. So that's what I put Forgotten Cave in there. And Smoldering Crater is exactly the same, except it costs 2 colorless mana. Again, more draw power for my red deck. Now, no deck anymore is complete without Planeswalkers. You must have Planeswalkers in your decks now. It's not a complete have to, but they sure are handy because every turn your Planeswalker's abilities just automatically trigger. So this is Chandra the Firebrand. She's a 4-cost. Her first ability, you get a +1 loyalty counter, and she deals 1 damage to target creature or player. Her neg 2 is the next time you cast an instant sorcery spell, you get to copy that spell, just like Fork, and choose new targets for that copy. And her final for neg 6 is you can deal 6 damage to up to 6 target creatures and or players. So that's nice to kind of hit a bunch of players all at once. If you're playing a multiplayer game, either Commander or just casually with a bunch of friends all at once, that's a nice ability to trigger, although that kind of makes her a target, but that's good because if they're wasting spells on her, then hopefully they won't be able to stop anything else you're doing. Alright, next is Chandra Nalar. She's a 5-cost. She's got 6 loyalty counters. Her +1 is deal 1 damage to target creature or player. And of course, Well, that seems kind of similar to this one, but what's nice is I believe I can have them both out and play at the same time. I think. I'm not sure. I'm going to have to double check that. It's been a little while since I played. So, Chandra deals X damage to target creature, which is kind of nice. So if you only got, if you got a little small pesky creature there, you can hit it for a couple damage, get rid of them. Or if you got a big creature, you can drop all her loyalty counters into it, get rid of it. Or if you need to deliver the final coup de grace to your opponent, and this is all you got, well, this is what you need to do. And then she's also got a -8 ability, her ultimate, which deals 10 damage to target player and each creature he or she controls. So again, pretty nice, doing a lot of damage. Chandra Blaze, 6 cost. You would think with the burn deck I'd have some cheaper creatures in here. But again, I'm just kind of experimenting with these planeswalkers, just seeing how it works. I need to get the 3 cost Chandra and put her in here instead of one of these, just because she's quicker to get out. So she's a 6 cost, and with her +1 ability, she can discard. I can discard a card, and if it's a red card, which it will be because it's a mono red deck, then she deals 4 damage to target creature or player. So that's nice. It's the equivalent of a Thunderbolt, because a Thunderbolt is a 2 cost, dealing 4, and now you can do 4 damage just by chucking a red card, which is super nice. I'll do that all day long to defeat my opponents. Plus, not all these cards are burn spells. They're kind of more auxiliary cards, creature cards, so I don't mind chucking them to do 4 damage guaranteed to my opponent. Her -2 ability, each player discards his or her hand, then draws 3 cards. Not necessarily something you need to do with this deck, but if for some reason it's just not working and you got to do it, do it. And then her ultimate ability, for -7, you can cast any number of red instant and or sorcery cards from your graveyard without paying their mana cost. Now that I like. Again, she's expensive, but if you can trigger that ability and you're having a lot of trouble taking down your opponent, or if you have multiple opponents, that's going to be a nice ability to have. All right, so let's move on. More draw power. Halloween Mine from way back in the day. It's a 2 cost. However, each player draws an extra card during his or her draw phase. It's not good that your opponents are getting cards, but you're getting cards, and hopefully your cards you'll be able to get out quicker, and you'll be able to defeat your opponent before they can get set up and take you down. Brain in a Jar. This is a little weird, something I've been kind of messing with. I haven't had a whole lot of opportunity to really test play it, but you can stock up charge counters on here until you get enough to cast an instant or sorcery card with a converted mana cost equal to the number of charge counters on Brain in a Jar from your hand without paying its mana cost. Or, for 3 and tap, you could remove a certain number of charge counters in order to scry. So, some kind of draw power in there. Just something different I'm messing with. It's cheap, so I thought, why not? Fork, basically, you can duplicate 1 instant or sorcery spell. Of course, a lot of spells in here are pretty cheap, but there's a couple opportunities where this might be a good option. And honestly, I'd only use 1 fork in here. And sometimes I'm on the fence because there are a few other better cards that I do like in here than fork. But again, this is a classic, and it's always fun to have all these neat old cards in there. Gutter Snipe, a 2/2 for 3, and whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, Gutter Snipe deals 2 damage to each opponent. Now, Gutter Snipe really seems to be like a staple for red decks, at least most of the time anyways. And what's nice is they're not really expensive. They're pretty cheap to come by. So pick yourself up a couple Gutter Snipes. I do. I got 2 Gutter Snipes in here because I'm going to cast Lightning Bolt, and I love Lightning Bolt. If you've come to the shop, you talk to me like the time, sooner or later you're going to find out I have a whole collection of Lightning Bolts from all sorts of different eras. I got some that are signed. I got some promos. Love Lightning Bolt. It's like my favorite. And of course, I have a playset of Lightning Bolts. Then, I have Chain Lightning, which is a Lightning Bolt, but it's a sorcery instead of an instant. Plus, when you cast it, your opponent gets a chance to pay 2 red to bounce it back to you and either hit you or one of your creatures. And then, of course, you can bounce it back. So if you're playing another red player, this could be kind of fun, bouncing it back and forth to each other and seeing who's going to die first. But a lot of times, I find that I don't really find myself playing a lot of other mono-red players, and if they got a little bit of red splashed into the deck, they usually don't have a chance or don't want to pay the 2 red to bounce it back and forth. So basically, this is just another Lightning Bolt. So I'm going to have 8 Lightning Bolts in my deck, so why not? You can see these babies are well played. Rift Bolt, another lightning bolt. That's a 3 cost and does 3 damage to target creature or player. It is only a sorcery. However, you can suspend it for 1. So first turn, you get a chance to suspend it, and then next thing you know, on your second turn, boom, it goes off, and you're probably casting other lightning bolts on top of that. And I keep a couple of those in my deck. Arc Blade. It's a 5 cost, pretty expensive. It does 2 damage to target creature or player, and then you can remove Arc Blade. Then you have to remove Arc Blade from the game with 3 time counters on it. And when you take the time counters off, basically it's suspended, so it automatically hits them again for 2 more damage. Or you could suspend it for 3 to begin with, play it, or I'm sorry, it triggers automatically, and then it suspends itself again, so then you can have that happen again. Again, it's a 5 cost, seems like kind of a lot, because if I'm spending 3 on this, I could probably do something else. But again, I've just been trying some different things in my deck. And you'll see a lot of the other stuff that I really prefer. I've thinned some of it out of this deck and put it in my sideboard, but we'll take a look at that here at the end of me going over this deck. All right, so Tormenting Voice. I put this in here so that way I get some more draw power. I do have to discard a card, but in order to get 2 cards, if I'm using this, I definitely have a card in my hand that I don't need. So, again, Tormenting Voice is just there to help give me a little bit of draw power. Magma Jet is nice. It's a 2 cost. It deals 2 and lets me scry 2. Get a little bit of setup. Not too bad. I do like Magma Jet, so I've got a play set in there. Book Burning. I had a friend use Book Burning on me a long time ago, and it's not too bad. So a player can either have, so if when I cast this as a sorcery, my opponent can either take 6 damage or mill the top 6 of their cards and put it in their graveyard. So a little bit of potential mill there, which is kind of nice. So if they're going to check cards or take damage, either way, it's a win-win. And usually I just keep 1 in there. Next, one of my few creatures I have, Hellspark Elemental. I love the Hellspark Elemental. He's a 2 cost, he's a 3/1, he's got Trample Haste, and there's a lot of ways to build this deck where you can get this guy out first turn. And when he comes out, you do have, and you got to swing with him right away, because then at the end of turn you have to sacrifice him. However, you can unearth him for 1 red and 1 colorless, get him back in the field, swing again with him, and then he's gone forever. But what a cool card. I really like Hellspark Elemental. Typically, I would normally play with a play set of these, or at least 3. But again, I've been messing with a couple of the different cards in here, so I've just got the 1. Hell's Thunder. This, I really like Hell's Thunder. It's a 4/4 for 3, flying haste, and early game, not too many flyers out there, and if there are, you'll be able to take them right out with Hell's Thunder. Again, you got to sacrifice them just like you do with Hellspark Elemental. But you can still unearth them for 5, a little pricey, but to get a 4/4 flyer out there, that's fine. Plus also, too, I've got a whole bunch of other spells that maybe I can get rid of my enemies' flying creatures, you know. Alright, so let's move on here. Ball Lightning. Here's an old card that people have used time and again in the red deck. This is almost, this has been a staple of the red deck. There's a lot of cool, better cards now that actually kind of eclipse Ball Lightning, but this thing is awesome, and I still love it. Still love having it in my deck. It's a 3 cost, it's a 6/1, got Trample, and of course he's not affected by Summoning Sickness, which means he's got Haste. And then at the end of the turn, you got to bury him. He goes to the graveyard. So really quick, really nice. Now, and I got to always keep a play set of Ball Lightnings. Next, I have Shah of Nar Isle. This is another new card I've been kind of playing with, or newer card, I should say. It's a 4 cost. It's a 6/6 with Trample, and he's got an Echo of 0. And at the beginning of my upkeep, if this came under my control since the beginning of my last upkeep, I have to sacrifice it unless I pay its Echo cost. And whenever I pay the Shah of Nar Isle's Echo cost, each opponent may drop the 3 cards. Now that seems a little wacky. It seems a little crazy. Why would I do that? I mean, sure, he's a 6/6 for 4, but what am I trying to get at? Well, what I'm going to do with the Shah of Nar Isle, my whole intention is my player, my opponent, hopefully won't get a chance to use any of those 3 cards that he drew, because sure, I might swing with him, but I'm using him for Fling. And for Fling is a 2 cost, it's an instant, and as an additional cost to cast Fling, sacrifice a creature, and Fling's damage deals equal to the sacrifice creature's power to target creature or player, and Shaw of Nar Isle is a 6/6, just like Ball Lightning. And so Fling, you swing with the Ball Lightning, swing with Shaw of Nar Isle, or even if you don't get a chance to swing with the Shaw or the Ball Lightning, you can still fling it and do that extra 6 points of damage. But if you can get Ball Lightning out and swing, you're doing 6. You fling them, you've just done 12 to your opponent. If you can get the Shaw out there, same thing. If you can swing, you're doing 6. But if you fling them after you attack, then now you're doing 12 damage. And that's not counting all the other cool burn spells you have. And of course, I always keep minimum 3 flings. Typically I will have 4, but I find in a lot of my decks I can trim down to 3 cards, even my crucial cards, and not do too bad, because usually by the time I draw the 3rd or 4th card, I'm on the ropes anyways, and I'm about ready to get put out by my opponent. Alright, so Fling, great card. And then Fire Blast. I love this card. Sure, hard cast is 6, but I never use it for that. This is my end of game card. I'm on the ropes, or I got to do that final Hail Mary, just barrage on my opponent. I never ever hard cast Fire Blast unless I absolutely have no choice, which usually if I got to hard cast this, I'm losing the game anyways. My whole deal is I save it for the end because I can sacrifice 2 mountains instead of paying Fire Blast casting cost, and it deals 4 damage to target creature or player. And this, I'm going to use it on a player for sure. So let's say I've got 2 mountains. I can tap both of my mountains, play 2 lightning bolts, so that's 6 damage. I sacrifice those 2 mountains in order to do 4 more damage, so that's a total of 10. And usually by the time I get to use Fire Blast, typically I have 4 or 6 mountains out in play, so I can easily do an additional 12 damage after I've already used my mana to cast my other spells. And that's not counting everything else I've been able to do up to this point. And then my final card is Final Fortune. This is always a cool card. It's always a fun card. And I have lost games because of it. I have won games because of it. And you can see it's pretty used. But it's a 2 cost, it's an instant, and I can take another turn after this one, and I lose the game at the end of that turn. And I tell you, being able to have just one more turn, one more chance to deal damage to your opponent, to get another card draw, I have won games because of this card. Again, it's chancy. I've lost horribly because, well, I just wasn't able to do enough. But this card is great. I love Final Fortune. It's tricky, but well, sometimes you just got to take your chances. All right, so let's look at my sideboard real quick. These are 15 cards, and you're going to recognize some of these. I've got an extra Hell's Thunder, Lava Dart, and this has flashback on it. It deals 1 damage to target creature or player. And if I sack a mountain, I can pull it out of my graveyard and do more damage. Again, not necessarily the best option, but if you're only missing a point or two, man, flash a couple of these back, it can win you the game potentially. Fireball, 1 and X. You pump everything you got into it, hit your player hard with it. Hellspark Elemental. There's a couple more of my Hellspark Elementals there, just sitting there in case the other cards are underperforming or not working like I think. Twin Flame. That's a newer card. I believe that's Journey into Nyx. And this has Strive. Twin Flame costs 3 more to cast for each target beyond the first. You can choose any number of target creatures I control. For each of them, put a token that's a copy of that creature onto the battlefield, and those tokens have haste. Exile them at the beginning of the next end step. So, something I'm just trying to play with just to see if it's worth it. I haven't actually tried it. The more I look at it, the more I read it, it's probably not going to make the cut, and I'll probably just end up substituting something different, like Incinerate. Again, it's a lightning bolt for 2. It's an instant, deal 3 damage to target creature or player. Nice thing is your creatures can't be regenerated. Oh, there's an extra ball of lightning. Oh, I think I might have too many ball lightnings in here. Let's take a look and see. I think I might have 5 ball lightnings. That's not cool. 1, 2, 3. Nope, nope, nope. Okay, cool. Sometimes that happens. You always want to check your sideboard. Make sure you don't put too many cards in your sideboard. I mean, this is a 15-card sideboard, but also, too, I'd sure hate to have 4 ball lightnings here and a 5th one here because that's not going to help me. Another book burning. Another book burning. Just because mill and or damage. Another book burning. Longhorn Fire Beast. I'd use him as a chump blocker. Plus, also, he's only a 3 cost. And when he comes into play, any opponent may have it deal 5 damage to him or her. And if they do, then you have to sacrifice it. But hey, if early game, if I can get him out quick, and my opponent wants to do 5 damage to themselves to get rid of this, that's fine because that's 5 less damage I have to do. So these are kind of neat. Now, in the past, I've had some other cool cards in here for Mana Excel, and you should really consider, if you're doing something like this mono red deck, like a Lotus Petal or a Simian Spirit Guide. And I have had a play set of Simian Spirit Guides before, and, you know, that's a really good idea, is to have at least 2 Simian Spirit Guides. Again, I'm trying to do some different stuff with this, but if you got 2 or 3 Simian Spirit Guides, that'll really help with your Mana Excel and getting stuff out early. Same with Lotus Petal. It'll help get your spells out early, hit them harder, hit them faster. And also, with Simian Spirit Guide and Lotus Petal, if anyone locks you down color-wise with your lands, then you can kind of get around that and you can still cast stuff. All right, so that's it. All right, so that's my burn deck. Always a work in progress, as any good Magic deck is. And I hope you enjoyed it today. I hope you saw some cool stuff maybe you haven't seen before. Maybe something you can add to your burn deck. Well, thanks again for watching. I'm Dave Hunt, owner of GameMasters Guild, telling you to stay safe, play great games, and I'll see you real soon.